till the last. Genesis chapter 1, 24 till the last. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it. I give every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. May God bless his word. Amen.
Thank you, Vijay, for reading for this morning. And good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. And if you're visiting with us today, we're very glad that you've decided to join us, and hope that you will have a good time with us today. It's good to see all of you here this morning. On the 16th of October this year, a bill was introduced into Parliament, and it was called Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill. It is what's called a private member's bill, which means that it's not government policy, but it's a proposal by one MP. And in this case, the bill is being proposed by the MP Kim Leadbetter. The details of this bill were published this past week on Monday, the 11th of November. And MPs will debate and they will vote on the bill on Friday, the 29th of November, so just under 2 weeks' time. It will be a free vote, allowing MPs to vote not along the normal party political lines, but according to their consciences. And if MPs vote in favour of the bill on the 29th of November, it will then continue on its journey through Parliament with some further debates and votes, and it could eventually become law, perhaps in several months' time. So what is this bill all about, and why, if you've been noticing the news this week, why has there been so much discussion and comment about it? The bill applies to those who are living in England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland have their own different arrangements. But this applies to those who are living in England and Wales, and it will give terminally ill adults with less than 6 months to live the right to end their lives at a time of their own choosing. But there will be certain conditions. Patients must be over 18. They must have the mental capacity to make a choice about the end of their life, and they must be terminally ill and expected to die within 6 months. They must express a clear, settled and informed wish in 2 separate witness declarations. 2 independent doctors must be satisfied that the person is eligible. The application must be approved by a High Court judge who would hear from at least one of the doctors and perhaps also the patient. The medicine that would cause death must be self-administered, with doctors banned from assisting. So you would have to do it yourself, take the medicine yourself. Coercion of a patient would be a criminal offence, punishable by up to 14 years in prison. If MPs vote in favour of this bill, and if it eventually becomes law, It will demonstrate a significant cultural change in attitudes and practices relating to life, death, and dying. The last time a similar bill was proposed and voted on in Parliament was 9 years ago in 2015, and on that occasion the bill was heavily defeated. But things have changed. We've had a lot of new MPs now, and nobody really knows what the outcome is going to be. Current laws prevent people from asking for medical help to die. Euthanasia, as it's referred to, or some refer to it as mercy killing, is illegal under English law. It is regarded as manslaughter or murder, and it carries the maximum penalty of life imprisonment. And the Suicide Act of 1961 makes it illegal to encourage or assist a suicide in England and Wales, and it carries a maximum sentence of 14 years imprisonment. Well, all of that would change if this new bill were to become law. Death is one reality we cannot avoid. The American politician Benjamin Franklin said, "In this world, nothing can be certain except death and taxing." And the evidence and experience of death is all around us. Friends and family, people we know, people we do not know, and eventually we ourselves will all have to face the inevitability of death. And when the time comes, how would you like to die? I suppose perhaps most people would say that they would like to have an easy, painless death. A good death, they might say. And good death is the literal meaning of the word euthanasia. Euthanasia is a word that's formed from two Greek words, eu meaning good and thanos meaning death. So put them together and you've got good death. Most people want to have a good death. And people will seek to offer comfort, perhaps when someone dies, when they say things like, well, at least he did not suffer, or she went peacefully. It was like he just fell asleep, or it was quick. Those are the sorts of deaths that people seem to want. But the reality is that most of us will not get to choose how, where, or when we die. And it is this right to die at a moment of one's own choosing that this new bill seeks to provide for, at least for certain people under certain circumstances. At the heart of the current debate is the notion that as human beings, we should have control over ourselves and over our own circumstances. We are autonomous. We should have the right to make choices that affect how we live and what we do. And that choice should extend to choosing the moment of our own demise. And if we're ever in a situation where life has become unbearable, perhaps through pain or through something else, then we should have the right to choose to die. It's another of the rights that we feel that we are entitled to have as human beings. However, when listening to those who are in favour of this new bill, it seems that what motivates people most for this change is fear. People may say that they're not afraid of death, but they're afraid of the process of dying. The comedian Woody Allen said it's not that I'm afraid of death, it's just that I don't want to be there when it happens. There is a fear of pain, fear of the physical pain and the emotional pain that may be involved. There is a fear of indignity when our bodily functions start to break down and the body doesn't work as it ought to work. There is a fear of dependence upon others when we have always lived our lives independently, but now we need others to care for us. There is a fear perhaps that my death is how I will be remembered rather than how I live the rest of my life. But are these fears a good enough reason to be given the right to choose our own moment of death? And even if we had that right, would it eradicate our fear? I feel that I would be more fearful if I were to know the exact time when I was to die. That, well, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, John, you've got an appointment at the doctor, go and get the medicine. And I would live in fear of that. Those who are opposed to a change in the law have expressed their concern that this bill would be the slippery slope, the thin end of the wedge. And already some have said that this bill does not go far enough, and the right to die should be extended to others who may not meet the proposed criteria, but who feel that their lives are no longer worth living. Those perhaps who are in constant pain, but not with a terminal illness. For example, people who suffer from motor neuron disease, a terrible condition, they would not be included in this bill. So we could ask, well, why should only some people have the right to choose? Why not all of us? If we got to the point where we felt that our life was of such a low quality, intolerable, that it wasn't worth living, why shouldn't we all have that right to choose? And this would really be the logical progression of this pathway if we were to take it. And indeed, this is what seems to have happened in places like Canada, which had a similar bill and which was subsequently extended to others who could also have that, right. So there's a real concern there as well. There are also practical risks that are involved with the proposed change to the law. There is the possibility of a wrong diagnosis. Perhaps the patient's condition is not terminal after all. There's the problem of predicting how long a patient can be expected to live. A doctor might say, well, we expect them to die within 6 months, but maybe that's wrong. Such predictions have been made and people have lived much longer. There is the possibility of abuse by health carers placing pressure upon the patient to accept the option of dying. There's the possibility of abuse by family and relatives who want to be relieved of the burden of caring for their family member. There's the possibility that the patient may feel that it is their duty to request death, that they don't want to be a burden to their family. They don't want to be a drain on the limited resources of the health service. And so the right to die becomes the duty to die. But whatever practical risks and consequences a change in the law may bring, our view on this will be shaped by our attitude towards life itself. Is our life our own? Is it something to do with as we wish, and over which we should have the final say? Or is it something that has been entrusted to us, a gift which we are responsible for and for which we are accountable? And where we stand on this will really depend on our beliefs. As a Christian who reads the Bible and believes the Bible to be the word of God, my view would be determined by what the Bible has to say about life and death and dying. And that should really form my opinion on a matter such as this. In the account of creation in Genesis chapter 1, the crowning event occurs on the 6th day, as Vijay read for us. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27 says, "Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. The account in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 says, "Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." We're God's creatures who have been made in his image and likeness, into whom God has breathed the breath of life. And therefore, life is something that is sacred, something that is God-given. And the principle of that sacredness of life is seen in the Bible's prohibition of murder, the taking of another life. The first murder recorded in the Bible was Cain's murder of his brother Abel. Later, after the flood in Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, God said, "Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image." So the prohibition of murder there is explained on the basis that God has made man in his own image. And a person who's made in the image of God is not to have his life taken by another person, with or without their consent. And that, by extension, would also apply to the taking of one's own life, which might be described as self-murder. To be made in the image of God implies that our dignity as human beings is not something that is self-created by us, but rather it reflects the dignity of God, just as a mirror reflects the image of an object. So we are to reflect the glory of God. We have an inherent dignity which is derived from the fact that we have been created in the image of God. And this dignity then means that each human life is something that is of immeasurable value, that each human being is a unique masterpiece of God's creation. The psalmist in Psalm 8 and verse 5 says of mankind, addressing God, yet you have made them a little lower than God, crowned them with glory and honor. We have been crowned by God with glory and honor. Humans are the pinnacle of God's creative work. Those who argue for the right to die when they wish say that they wish to do so with dignity. They wish to die with dignity, by which they mean without pain or suffering. But whatever difficulties or suffering we may experience at the end of life, however undignified our physical condition may become, we're still creatures who have been made in the image of God, and therefore we have dignity, however we die. God still has a high regard for us. And to be created in the image of God also implies the equality of human lives, that we all have a common origin and we all bear a likeness to our Creator. Even so, we are still unique individuals, and there are differences between us in terms of our appearance or our ability, our circumstances and experiences in life. But underlying these differences is our common shared humanity, that all of us being made in the image and the likeness of God. And in that regard, we are all equal, male and female, adult and children, rich and poor, healthy and sick, powerful and weak. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 2 says, "The rich and the poor have this in common: the Lord is the maker of them all." And the fact that all of us are created in the image of God is something that has profound implications about the way that we behave towards one another. That we would not want to harm or to hurt others because we have all been made in the image of God and we are of a common origin. So if this bill were to become law, then doctors would be placed into an awkward position. Doctors take an oath to say that they will not do harm, but rather do good. But now they would be put in a position where perhaps they would be asked to do something that was harmful in providing assistance to those who are dying. If we believe that human beings have been created in the image of God, then how should we respond to that? Well, we should respond with wonder. Sometimes we look at the creation around us and we're filled with awe and wonder when we see a beautiful sunset, or when we look at a marvelous mountain scene, or when we consider the amazing variety of creatures on our planet. But what should fill us with an even greater sense of wonder is the sight of other human beings. And perhaps it is because we see so many people so often, or because we see the terrible things that human beings do to one another, that we've lost that sense of wonder. But every human being is a wonder. Every human being is a person who possesses the image and the likeness of God and has the potential to be godlike in so many ways. Being made in the image of God also means that we should respond with respect towards one another. We should treat every person with respect, regardless of who they are or how they behave. And we should respond with empathy. Empathy means to put yourself in the other person's position, to enter into their experience, to see things as they see things, to feel things as they feel them. And we should respond with protection, that each life is precious and should be protected, whether that is the unborn, the elderly, the sick, the vulnerable, or the dying. That all who have been created in the image of God are deserving of protection, and that should extend to end-of-life care as well, and the provision of good palliative care at the end of life. All human beings have been created in the image of God, and God has breathed into each one of us the breath of life. And if we understand this, then we can see life as a gift from God, something God has given us, and something that he can take from us as well. As Job acknowledged in Job chapter 1, verse 21, where he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." The question of death and the right to choose our own moment is a sensitive and a complicated one. And our MPs have a big responsibility when they discuss this bill. If you're concerned about any of it, you can contact your MP, write to them or email them and tell them your views on it, and perhaps influence them. But in the end, what matters is not how, when you die, but how you have lived your life. But life is not assessed by the manner of our death, but by how we have lived. Whatever we may have to face in our final days or hours, however painful or undignified or fearful they may be, we have the assurance of God's presence with us. In the valley of the shadow of death, the Lord is with us. The God of comfort comforts us in all our affliction. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 to 18, the Apostle Paul wrote, "So we do not lose heart. Though our outer nature is wasting away, our inner nature is being renewed every day. For this slight momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. Because we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal." And this is the hope that every Christian has. The good death, then, is not necessarily a painless, comfortable death, but a good death is one that will bring us into that eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. Amen.